Welcome to Southern Life, everybody. On this video, we're going to explore Bonita Springs, Florida. You guys ready to ride along? Let's do it. The tour starts around Estero Bay, and we head south along Bonita Beach. You guys have asked me the instrumentals that I use on my videos. What's up with these instrumentals that I use, and where do I get them from? And I actually go on the keyboard and do it myself on FL Studio. So this beat in particular has been really popular. Everybody's like, "Wow, what is that beat? Where is that music you're playing? What type of music?" Like everybody, like a lot of people have really liked those instrumentals, and they think that I just get it off the internet. But no, I actually made that myself. It's a banjo. It's an instrument that it is, and this banjo, it has a lot of different influences. I don't really go when I make music. I like to start with a base of a regional music, and then I incorporate to that base sounds of electronic music. That way when I make one of these instrumentals for my channel, the bass, it has a real musical bass, so it's not 100% just random electrical music. I actually start with a regional type of, and I'm doing it all through FL Studio, so it's still synthetic music, but I have a bass that's something that you would expect to hear from a real instrument, real music. So yeah, I mean, I start with that banjo bass, so I started making a banjo melody, and then after I've made the banjo melody, I'll incorporate sounds. On this particular beat, I went with some something called bro country elements. I did some bro country on top of it, and then I did a steady kick, which is something you might get like in rock music or something like that. And yeah, I make my own instrumentals, and actually, since I've came to Alabama, I thought living out here in the woods and being away from people, I would be able to make better instrumentals. But I actually haven't been able to make good beats since I got here. I don't know if it's the vibes or what, but I haven't really been able to compose any real good music since I came down here. But yeah, I do make my own instrumentals for my musics, and it's just. In the past, YouTube will give you a lot of stuff. YouTube will give you stuff you could use. But if for any reason that music is retracted from the YouTube platform, like let's say they decide to get a copyright for it or who knows what, they'll actually take down your track, and you'll lose your content basically. The whole video gets taken down. So I did that with YouTube, where I used their music for a while. And I had like 4 videos disappear. I'm like, I can't have videos disappear because I'm using their music. So I knew I had to start making my own music. And I'm a weird person when I make my music, because I like to take elements of. Usually I use a tempo of like 96 to 100, and I like to keep it. I use a lot of Latin fusion into it. I like to have the bongos, the congas, and I like to have a rock sounding bass with the kicks and all that. And yeah, so I make my own beats, and I don't have to worry about YouTube taking my content down. So you guys have asked me a lot of times, Other times people hate it, But this beat that I use here at the intro is one that, for the most part, it's had a really good reception, and I don't know if I could go back and kind of make a real song out of that beat because it sounds like a lot of people are like, "Wow, what is this music you're playing? It's so weird and interesting, in a good way." So yeah, that beat I may have to go back and touch it up and maybe make a little, um, I don't know, something out of it because it seems like it's been a really popular beat. A lot of times people say it sucks, and then other times, 90% of the time people say my music sucks, but that one beat people like. So yeah, I mean, being a YouTube creator takes a lot more than just uploading a video. You have to have. I mean, I've been doing. I used to do beats when I was like 14 years old. We started making beats. I was with a group of kids that all kind of wanted to do something as far as music when we were young. What happened was that you grow up, and I still have that talent, but I want to use it in a way that is more productive and is not like when you look at music today. Like you go on YouTube, and there's towns they'll criticize my video because I'll do my drive around, and I'll get a lot of criticism for what I say about the place where I'm at or how it hurts their community. Yeah, my YouTube video hurts your community. Okay, it's not the people slaying, and it's not the people littering. I'm the one who I'm the one hurting your community. Okay, so with that, it seems like to me a lot of musical artists they do a lot of harm not only to themselves but to their community. I mean, there's an artist out of Orlando now who pretty much took out his own cousin because he wanted to be the only artist in Orlando. So he's an artist coming up out of Orlando, very skilled artist, unique sound, vocals are unique, everything is unique about this artist. But his cousin started doing music too, and he took out his cousin. Now he's gonna spend the rest of his life locked up. I mean, he pretty much just threw away his whole life because he allegedly, right, according to the news and stuff, he didn't want another artist in Orlando. He wanted to be the only artist coming out of Orlando. So these artists talk about 1,000 things that are detrimental to their community, and then they do things that are horrible for their communities. I mean, there's like a ghost, a witch hunt against me in Florida and a lot of places for the things that I do with my videos on social media. Yet these artists that are talking about selling stuff that's pretty much poisoning their community, pretty much doing things that are very detrimental to their community, the safety of their community. Nobody actually goes after these people and says, hey, what you're doing is wrong, but I'm doing something wrong because I'm helping people that are moving know what they're going to face in these places they're going to. So I just find it ironic how for what I do on YouTube, so many people go after me for what I'm doing. Yet here's these artists who are talking about poisoning their communities, stealing, doing home invasion robberies, and actually doing it, not just talking about it, because half the time they get caught up on some life sentence type of thing. Nobody is upset at these people for their role in how their entertainment form affects their community. However, me helping people move, letting them know these neighborhoods have these problems going on, that's looked at in a negative light. However, nobody looks at a negative light the fact that these artists are pretty much poisoning the minds of the young people, which is probably the absolute worst thing. It's not just what they do personally and what they brag about doing, it's also the influence that they have on their community with their content, which is basically brain poison. But nobody on social media has a problem with that. They have a problem with me, a YouTuber, telling people, hey, these things are going on in this community. So that's a very interesting way to look at. So therefore, with my musical talents and abilities, which I don't really refine or practice that, I just do, use it for my YouTube channel, are not going to be used to pretty much poison society. I just use them for a little bit of an entertainment value in my videos, and that's really all I need. And a lot of people tell me, you're a clickbaiter and all that. Well, the thing, I could do a lot more as far as getting attention. If you notice, our channel's PG-13. We don't really allow anything of a profane tone on our channel. Uh, a lot of people try to play the whole political correct card on my channel, and everything you do, they want to control every aspect of what you do on your channel. They want to tell you you can't do this, you can't do that. And we had this discussion on this Florida trip that we just did. We pretty much said, let me just be myself and just talk the way I want and just do whatever I want. And the videos, they're great. I mean, we've reached 30,000 views a day consistently for a week since I did that last Florida trip. And the only thing I did on that video is I said, I don't care what these people think about me. I'm just going to say whatever it is needs to be said as far as what I think about the places I'm going to. And it did great for our channel. So, I'm really not seeing the benefit to conforming to their demands, which are unreasonable. If there's some things that are reasonable, there's times where I've had to say, okay, we have to be more sensitive. For example, the Uniontown situation, I definitely agree that there was a chance for me to be a little bit more correct, and not. But then again, like that's because of the sensibilities of that region, not because of what I was doing, but in respecting the needs of the viewers, basically. So with all that, I know we're supposed to be talking about Bonita Springs here. We'll get to that in a minute, but what it encompasses is that we all have talents and abilities, but we have to use them in a way that's not detrimental to society. And it just felt like as I got more mature, I realized that I wasn't going to be able to use my musical abilities in a way that would be of any value to society. So I do have the ability to make some instrumentals and stuff, but I just, background music for my channel is nothing more than that. And I really haven't had a chance to refine it since I've been in Alabama. I've been so busy making content that I've just been using my old beats because it takes a lot of time to make these beats. So. The theme was the most Mexican sound ever, and I'm pretty sure I nailed that one. So, let's talk about Bonita Springs a little bit. That's what this video is really about. Uh, Bonita Springs has a lot of Spanish people, and it's probably like 30% Latino, and it's a really clean Latin community. I mean, like, it's one of those Latin communities where even though like poverty is at play, even though a lot of the parents are immigrants, even though a lot of like it's not an easy situation there for these people. They come here with nothing. It's still a really great community in the sense that kids are really, even though that they're coming from poverty, they're still making something out of it, and they're not going to crime. There's a few gangs, but these are people that they already come from their countries with whatever crap or state, whatever crap they came from. They bring it along with them, and but it's not something like where there's like actual gangs. Nonetheless, I've seen kids in Bonita Springs who come from a really good background, like really good families and all that, and they throw their lives away with addiction and all that, and their kids are coming from a great background. And then I see kids in Bonita Springs coming from a really bad background, and they really get their crap together. It just seems like, for some reason, a lot of the kids that I know that grew up in Bonita Springs, even though their parents had money and they had a very comfortable lifestyle, for some reason they just all went the wrong way. A lot of them, even though it's a great community, which is like, here's this beautiful little small town in the middle of a metropolitan area that has beaches. Bonita Springs has beaches within city limits, I'm pretty sure. You got beaches, you got sunshine, you got things to do, you got money to do those things with, you're not worried about going hungry, and it just perplexes me how kids with so much opportunity and so much potential kind of just throw that away. And that's, it's wild because it's really not a bad place. It's just the personal decisions that individuals make. In a place where everything's been given to them. It's just kind of interesting. So Bonita Springs, I used to put it on my top 10 best places in Florida, and I'm going to stop doing it because it's been kind of stomped over by Southwest Florida, and it's become like Naples or Fort Myers. It's really been degraded by the encroachment of development. It's just not what it used to be. I mean, traffic, it's not the small town it used to be. It's kind of now like a middle ground between larger metropolitan areas that are trying to swallow it up. So Bonita Springs is, and it hurts to do that because I really do think it's a great place, but it's not moving in the right direction as far as the encroachment of tourists and stuff like that. It just kind of degrades the place a lot. So it's really sad that a few years ago I had Bonita on my top 10 places for best, and now it's not going to make it anymore on these lists because pretty much it just hasn't worked out for people. The cost of living there makes no sense at all. I mean, Bonita Springs would be great if you could move there for if you could buy a house in Bonita Springs for $170,000, it would be top 10 best places. But not at twice that much money. You have more options, and those options are better. So it's really hard for me to recommend Bonita Springs, and it's my hometown. I mean, even though I live in Naples, you're gonna see that later on in the video. I actually drive to another area of Bonita, where even like when we went to the beach, you'll notice people are pulling U-turns, and I pulled a U-turn. You go into that gated community there, and I was going to go to the beach, and I realized there's so many people at the beach you can't even, like, it's not a beach town anymore. Like, what was the point of living in a beach town if you'll see in the video we pulled into that gated community to go to the beach that's there, and there were so many cars that you notice people are already turning around. When I stop at that intersection, you'll see all the cars going in. Those are all cars going into the beach. There's not enough houses back there for that much traffic. So it's just one of those deals where, okay, it used to be this great little beach town, but now you can't even go to the beaches because there's so many people. So what's the allure of it? There is no allure. It's just a place that went to crap, basically, like the rest of Southwest Florida. I will give Bonita respects in that it held on to that small town vibe a whole lot longer than Naples and all the other places in Southwest Florida. It really had a long, long ride, holding on to the small town charm, but I don't think it's there anymore. And the real estate prices make absolutely no sense compared to. So it's one place that I'm not going to keep recommending it because it's just not going in the right direction. And it's not a small town. It's over 70,000 people now. So lots of memories there. You'll notice how quick I go from Bonita to where I used to live, the street where I used to live. So even though I'm not from Bonita Springs, it's still my hood in that it's basically there. I mean, I did everything. Even when I lived in Naples, I did a lot in Bonita. Probably 60 to 80% of the things I did in Naples were in Bonita, whether I'm shopping, getting groceries, whatever I did, I used to always head into Bonita because I'm kind of between Bonita and Naples, and I like going to Bonita more. So even though I'm from a Naples address, Bonita's really my town. And I know a lot more people in Bonita. Who do I know in Naples is the thing, other than customers, and that's not people you're cool with. All my people that are on a social level with me were in Bonita. Whether it was people that I would hang out with, because it's just more normal people. There's not as many gated communities, and I never really people living in gated communities. That's a whole different social class that I don't associate with. Not that I have a problem with them. It's just apparently I'm not cool enough for them. So either way, I never did much in Naples because it's all gated communities. I did just about everything in Bonita because it's more of a neighborhood feel type of place. And it's crazy how, like, the people that come there as immigrants from other countries kind of adapted better to the regional requirements of living there. And they didn't really destroy the place. They kind of just were there, brought their kids, they actually made families, you know what I mean? Like, in a sense, I feel like some of these immigrants that came from, like, Guatemala and, Mexico mostly Guatemala, to be honest, like, they became more, like, they brought their kids there, and they put their kids through the school systems there. And I've met people from Guatemala who are not legal, who would tell me, Jose, I'm not from Guatemala, man. I'm from Bonita Springs. My kids go to school here. This is my hometown. My kids were born here, and they're going to school here, or I brought my kids here, and this is where we're from. Like, even though we're not from here, this is where we identify, because this is where we made our family, where we put our kids through school. This is where we did everything we are, is here in Bonita Springs. And then a bunch of tourists come and kind of buy up all the real estate for vacation rentals so they can pass out outside a restaurant intoxicated, and then it's like you would think that the people coming from these poor countries are the ones that would ruin a place. No, it's the people that come to vacation and it's just makes it's weird. Like you would expect the people coming from other countries to be the problem with a community, and they're not. They're the ones who are actually putting kids through school and trying to raise them right. And when you see what these kids come out, because I've seen, there's a Latino community that's been established long enough to where we saw the kids that were born there. I saw kids born in Bonita Springs, and now they're adults that are working and functioning in society, getting married and having kids. And they're very productive people in society. Very well employed, very well educated. That's the other thing. It's like the immigrant community there is they've really stressed out to their kids the importance of an education. So like here you look at kids that are from another country. Their parents don't even speak English. They work cutting lawns and doing the absolute worst jobs you could possibly do, and their kids are success stories. They're born in the United States, so they're American citizens. They go to school, they get their education on. They don't get caught up in drugs. They don't get caught up in crime. They don't get caught up with nothing. They turn 18 years old. Their parents have saved money. They go to college. They get an education, and now these are really respectable young people getting married, having kids, doing their families, starting businesses. And you look at kids that are living right there in that same community, in a gated community where their parents are wealthy, where their parents own businesses, where everything monetarily is there. I mean, monetarily, you're talking places that are really well off. And when you look at those families, their kids end up like on drugs, and like they end up throwing their lives away, like in addiction, and they can't get they're not able to get married and have a functional family themselves. They end up just being, I don't know, renegades. It's crazy how, the kids that came from the background of hard work and pretty much, imagine growing up in a house where your parents can't go to the gas station in a car because they don't have a driver's license. You know what I mean? Or your dad works 12 hours a day in the heat. You have to walk to the grocery store with your parents at night. There's been like 4 or 5 kids that I know of that have been hit by cars in Bonita walking to the grocery store because they're not even allowed to have a car, man. And the kids coming from that background, where both parents are illegal, they can't even drive a car somewhere, they can't pick you up at school, you have to ride the buses, whatever. They go through that whole thing. But they're born here, so they're U.S. citizens. They become productive members of society. And then on the other hand, here's a kid who grows up in a private gated community with every luxury they could want. When they turn 16 years old, they go to a dealership and pick out the car they want. Their parents pay for it cash. Their parents are willing to put them through any schooling. Their parents have businesses, and they're willing to say, here's this business you can have. And these kids end up pretty much doing nothing with their lives. It's ironic how, and this is just an observation that I've made in Bonita Springs, where a lot of kids had, and not just Bonita, but Naples in general, where a lot of kids had an incredible opportunity based on their background, and they end up dead overdose, shot doing a home invasion robbery. Or like, how do these kids coming from this background get caught up in this crap? Like, again, back to criticism that I get from my community, like, is that some people might think they know who I'm talking about, and then they get offended at me. Like, bro, I came from real poverty. I grew up on Royal Cove. I came up from real poverty. You didn't see me overdosing. You didn't see me getting caught up in in something like that. But here's these kids that grew up in a gated community. That when they were 16 years old, they were driving a $50,000 car to school. Why are they getting caught up on street stuff when the kids that came from the struggle didn't? So it's just ironic how sometimes people think because they're in a gated community and they're in a low crime community that their families are going to work out great. No, because they're missing something, because the people living in those high crime communities, living in those poor places where there are gangs, where there is crime, where there are no legalities to your whatever you're doing, those people come out complete success stories. What's missing? What's wrong? And I'm not criticizing the moral fabric of these families, because some of these families are upright, great families. I mean, you're talking people that are amazing, but something about that lifestyle of putting your children. So I'm not criticizing anybody at all as far as families, because these are successful families as well. Great people, actually. Um, what I'm saying is not so much criticizing the families that are living in that opulence, but just letting you know that something about that lifestyle doesn't add up as far as your children being successful. And I've had this conversation with a lot of really mature people, a lot older than me, and we've just been like, how come these people who have all this opportunity end up pretty much throwing their lives away? And it's because nothing. I know exactly why it is. Probably, I might be wrong. I want to hear you guys' opinions, but I think it has something to do with the fact that nothing is expected from these kids. Nothing's expected from them. If your parents don't speak English, you're expected to be a translator. You're expected to walk to the groceries. You're expected to get your own groceries. You're expected to have responsibilities. When you turn 14 years old, you got to start working too. A lot is expected from children that are coming from a bad background. If you're living in a neighborhood where there's two gangs across, on this side of the neighborhood you got this gang, and the other side of the neighborhood you got the other gang, you're expected not to be part of that. You're expected you're expected in an elementary school. You're expected to not take part in whatever they're doing. You understand me? So the expectations that the lifestyle of poverty puts upon children makes them more successful because there's already something expected from them. But when you live in opulence and they get everything handed to them, what is expected from these kids? Nothing. So when they hit society, they don't know how to function because nothing's expected from them. Nothing's ever been expected from them. Not even respect. I mean, these kids, they have their own bedrooms, their own bathrooms, they have everything, they have cars. Nothing's expected from them. Everything's given to them. So society is about knowing how to coexist with other people and knowing how to interact with other people and knowing what is expected from you as a member of society. And when you live in a society where everything's given to you, everything's catered to you, then you don't understand the reality of when you turn 18 years old and you hit the streets. That's why I don't know the way most parents think that putting their kids in I don't tell you how to parent your kids, but I've seen from personal experience that putting your kids in a private community, buying them a car when they turn 16, and living a life of opulence, giving them everything they want, you might think that because that's what people want. We're looking for the best rated schools. We're looking for the safest communities to put our family in, and you think that is what your family needs. I told Katie, if we ever have a kid to raise, even if we're loaded, those kids are they're not gonna suspect we're loaded. I mean, like, I would quite literally grab all our fancy stuff and put it in a storage unit for 40 years, 20 years, 18 years, whatever, I don't know. They would not know that I told Katie, if we ever have kids, we're moving to we're moving into a city, they're not going to know we have money. There's no way if we have kids, they can know what we have. They have to think we're poor, and they have to think they're poor, and they have to think that nothing is going to be given to them, and everything that they get in life has to be worked for. So I told her, if we ever have kids, they have to think we got a mortgage, or they have to think we got a rent. They cannot know how we're really living, because then they're going to expect everything to be handed to them, and that's not how life works. So my advice to people who are looking for these safe communities, best schools, and all that, is you really need to rethink. If you think all it takes is putting your kids in a good school and putting your kids in the car when they turn 16 and moving to a safe community. I grew up in Naples, where 95% of those kids had the best schools possible, the best, safest communities. And I've had friends coming from that background killed doing crimes by police or by homeowners or by other criminals. All three, actually. What else? Overdosed. I had friends who lived in a $600,000 house, perfect suburban lifestyle, safest community, best school, overdosed on drugs and died, or some type of other drug related accident. You're not, just because you put your kids in a good environment, if you don't teach them anything, you think your school doesn't raise your kids. I mean, if anything, as a parent, you have to know what are they teaching these kids in school, because you might have to tell your kids, hey, they're teaching you this subject in school. You're there, you're answering right and wrong, ABC, but that's not really what you need to be learning. They're teaching you that, you fill in the right answer, but in your conscience, you know that there's more to it than just what the school's teaching you. You know? And that goes to history, that goes into science, that goes into math, that goes into a lot of subjects where what's being taught to you, I don't know. It's just, you can't just throw your kids out the school system and expect the school systems and safe community to bring up your kids. No, that's not their job. You know? So it's an artificial sense of security in your community where here's kids who are really living in dangerous conditions, as far as they can get ran over by a car because there's no sidewalks in their communities. They have mold in their house. They are surrounded by strangers within close proximity because the community has high population density. They have all these real dangers that they have to look out for, and they come out all right. And then you see these kids that come up from gated communities and they get caught up in all types of crazy street stuff. So that's my thoughts for the day, and it does relate to Bonita Springs because I know a lot of you guys are trying to find the best places to live, but sometimes, like where I live here in Alabama, there's a lot of element here. I mean, there's around me here, there's a lot of bad element. I could get caught up in that bad element, but I'm being a success story here, because just because I'm surrounded by a bad element doesn't mean I'm going to go fall into it. You know what I mean? And the same thing that happens in Bonita Springs with those poor families happens here in Alabama, where you have people growing up in poor communities with a lot of crime, a lot of addiction, but these kids come out spectacular people. I mean, they're not just educated from a secular school point of view. These are the people that also have formal education, open a door for women, yes sir, yes ma'am. So their education is beyond just secular school education, and expands into moral education. It expands into society education, and it goes into respecting other people. They're not going to teach you that in these schools, okay? In fact, a lot of times these teachers in these really best rated schools, they're afraid of the children because the children's parents are all rich people who go in there and throw a fit. Or in poor communities, these teachers in poor communities, they don't put up with garbage. These kids, if they're actually, they learn a little bit of respect for the. I had the best teacher that I ever had in Naples, Florida, was a guy called Mr. Williams. He was from Atlanta, Georgia, and he was from inner city schools in Atlanta. And they brought this guy and put him in North Naples. And whoever brought this guy there needs an award for like teacher. That needs to be the teacher of the year. Not only did they find this teacher from inner city Atlanta and bring him to Naples to expose these children to, whoever did that was a genius, by the way. I don't know, whoever hired this guy was a genius. And Mr. Williams, wherever you are, he didn't like me because I was a mess up for the most part. But now that I reflect on it, this guy was a genius. And all the students loved this guy because he was, even though he was a subject matter teacher, his education was not, he would tell the kids, hey, we're going to teach you something more important, than what's really on this curriculum. And he did. And he kept kids, I can't really get into detail into the work this guy did, but he did so much for those children, including myself, my classmates, that this guy literally saved hundreds of kids, not hundreds, at least dozens of kids from just about ruining their lives, because there were kids right there, right then, that needed that, whatever he did. I can't elaborate on it, but what he did for those kids, as far as waking them up to the reality of what's out there in the real world, you can't even put a value on it. I mean, whoever brought this guy to the school did an incredible thing for those children, because they realized that more important than the curriculum that was being pushed into these kids' head, these kids have a local need for some type of, there's an issue here, and we need somebody who can kind of wake these kids up to the reality of what happens when you turn 18. You know what I mean? But in the most part, it took a teacher from inner city Atlanta to be put into that school to kind of help these kids see, one, the opportunity that they had and how they were going to use it, and two, that not everybody has those opportunities. Whereas, in the most part, in these best rated schools, these teachers are terrified of these kids. They're not going to tell little Johnny that he needs to pay attention, or little Johnny that he can't do this and that. But try that in a bad school. And you go into a bad school, and if you don't have your stuff in order, they're just going to kick you out and put you into a special resource school, which is not where you want to be. Anyways, those are my thoughts for today. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. And that's a tour of Bonita Springs, and that's what's on my mind this morning. If you're thinking about moving and relocating, think a little bit beyond the statistics of the neighborhood and think about what you're personally doing as far as preparing your children for the real world versus this artificial security. Because I've seen kids coming from that gated community, and there was more addiction, more negative things coming out of those gated communities than there were in the hoods. That's just the truth. Thank you guys so much for sharing this time with me. And I'm just reflecting on how many great families I know that are coming out of the hoods and out of poor places, but they got their crap together. Versus kids that come from a perfect background and they can't get their crap together because everything's been handed to them. That's what's on my mind this morning.